Paul Braxton Fugate was born on September 2nd, 1938. From a young age, he had a passion for the great outdoors, a love that eventually led him to the National Park Service. Dedicated, hardworking, and deeply knowledgeable about nature, Fugate spent years protecting and preserving some of America's most breathtaking landscapes. By 1980, he had been working as a park ranger at Chiricahua National Monument in southeastern Arizona for several years. He was well-liked by colleagues and known for his deep commitment to his job. But on one fateful day, Paul Fugate would walk into the wilderness and never return. January 13, 1980, was an unremarkable day at Chiricahua. The monument, known for its towering rock formations and rugged terrain, wasn't particularly busy. Around 2 p.m., Fugate left the visitor center where he had been stationed. He told a seasonal employee that he was heading out to do a trail check. Clad in his standard-issue green and gray Park Service uniform, he left without his coat or personal belongings. It was a routine patrol, nothing unusual, nothing that should have raised any alarms. But he never came back. Hours passed, and when Fugate failed to return to the visitor center, staff members grew concerned. A search was launched that evening, but there was no sign of him. The terrain was harsh, filled with deep canyons, dense vegetation, and hidden crevices, places where a lone ranger could easily become lost. The search quickly escalated, drawing in park employees, local law enforcement, and volunteers. Helicopters scanned the landscape from above, and search teams scoured the trails. But there were no footprints, no dropped items, no signs of struggle, nothing. As the days stretched into weeks, the mystery deepened. There were no reports of Paul Fugate leaving the park, no indications that he had voluntarily disappeared. His car was still parked at the monument, and his personal belongings remained untouched. It was as if he had simply vanished into thin air. Investigators considered multiple theories. One possibility was that Fugate had suffered an accident. Perhaps he had fallen into a ravine or been caught in an unexpected rockslide. But extensive searches found no evidence to support this. Another theory suggested that he had encountered foul play. Some speculated that he may have come across illegal activity, such as drug trafficking, which was not uncommon in remote areas of the Southwest. If he had stumbled upon something he wasn't meant to see, could he have been silenced? Rumors circulated that Fugate had left of his own accord, but those who knew him best found this unlikely. He was deeply dedicated to his job and his loved ones. His longtime partner, Dodie Fugate, never believed he would abandon his life without a word. The uncertainty of his fate weighed heavily on those closest to him. In 1986, 6 years after his disappearance, the National Park Service declared Paul Fugate legally dead. But that did little to solve the mystery. In 2018, nearly 4 decades after he went missing, the National Park Service renewed interest in the case, offering a $60,000 reward for information. Yet, despite the passage of time, no credible leads have ever emerged. Today, Chiricahua National Monument remains a place of stunning natural beauty. But for those who know its history, it also holds a lingering mystery, one that may never be solved. Paul Fugate walked into the wilderness on a quiet afternoon in 1980, and in the vast, unforgiving landscape, he disappeared without a trace. In the summer of 1996, 54-year-old Randy Morganson was exactly where he had always dreamed of being, deep in the rugged wilderness of California's Kings Canyon National Park. As a seasoned backcountry ranger, he had spent years patrolling some of the most remote and breathtaking landscapes in the Sierra Nevada. He was dedicated to his work, loved by his colleagues, and deeply connected to the land he protected. But then, one day, he vanished without a trace. Randy Morganson was born in 1942 to parents who shared a passion for the outdoors. Raised in Yosemite National Park, where his father worked, Randy was immersed in the wilderness from a young age. He developed a deep love for the mountains, which shaped his entire life. After college, he spent time traveling, studying literature, and even working as a photographer. But his true calling was always the backcountry. He joined the National Park Service in the 1960s and quickly became one of its most respected rangers. His colleagues knew him as a man deeply committed to conservation and safety. He took his job seriously, often reminding hikers of the dangers of the wild, and was a strong advocate for preserving the land. Though he had a gentle and reflective nature, Randy was also struggling in his personal life. His marriage had grown strained, and he seemed troubled in the months leading up to his disappearance. By 1996, Randy had spent more than 20 summers working in the High Sierra. That July, he was stationed at a remote patrol cabin near Bench Lake. It was his duty to check on hikers, enforce park regulations, and assist those in need. On the morning of July 21st, he radioed a colleague, giving no indication that anything was wrong. He mentioned he might head out on patrol, but didn't specify where. That was the last time anyone heard from him. By the next day, Randy had failed to check in as scheduled. At first, no one panicked. Rangers sometimes stayed out longer than expected. But when another day passed without word, concern grew. On July 24th, the National Park Service launched a full-scale search. Helicopters, search teams, and tracking dogs scoured the vast wilderness, covering an area of nearly 150 square miles. Rangers searched the trails, lakes, and rugged cliffs, calling out Randy's name. Yet there was no sign of him, no footprints, no gear, no evidence of an accident. The only clue was his abandoned campsite, which appeared undisturbed. It was as if he had simply vanished. The search lasted for weeks, then months. Friends and fellow rangers speculated on what might have happened. Had he fallen into a hidden crevice? Been swept away by a river? Had he staged his disappearance, overwhelmed by personal troubles? Some even wondered if he had encountered foul play, though there was no evidence to suggest it. For 5 years, the mystery remained unsolved. Then, in 2001, a breakthrough. A hiker exploring a remote area near Window Peak stumbled upon skeletal remains, tattered clothing, and ranger gear partially buried under rocks. DNA tests confirmed what many had feared. It was Randy Morganson. The evidence suggested a tragic accident. His radio and backpack were found nearby, and it appeared he had fallen into a steep drainage area, likely swept away by high water. His body had remained hidden for years, only to be revealed when conditions shifted. Though the discovery brought closure, it didn't answer every question. How had an experienced ranger like Randy ended up in such a dangerous spot? Had he been injured and unable to call for help? Or had the weight of his personal struggles contributed to his fate? Even today, Randy Morganson's story lingers in the minds of those who knew him. He was a man who lived for the wilderness, and in the end, the wilderness took him. His legacy endures through the rangers who continue to protect the High Sierra, inspired by his passion and dedication. Hikers who pass through Kings Canyon sometimes pause to remember him, leaving small memorials at the place where he was found, a quiet tribute to a ranger who never truly left the mountains he loved.